How about now?
I prefer the real
Droff.
I said the real.
Droff.
Perfection.
Nigel Hendroff's tones from yesteryear are some of my favorite guitar tones of all time. In this video, I'm going to share how to recreate those tones to the best of my ability using the Line 6 Helix and HX Stomp. Hello and welcome to the video. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Justin and I'm all about worship guitar. Please subscribe and hit that bell notification button to be kept updated on my latest content and treat me to a coffee to support these videos and my ministry. Stick around to the end for a bonus section where I share where to download the patches for both the Line 6 Helix and the HX Stomp. If we've met before, welcome back. Praise and worship's OG guitar hero, Nigel Hendroff. I'll admit that I'm a Droff chaser, as some of my pieces of my gear collection can attest. These guitars connect me to the era of my youth, especially the year that I received the Lord Jesus into my heart. I was just starting out on electric guitar and listening to the Droff's lead guitar on albums like Blessed, For All You've Done, and especially Hope pushed me to learn how to solo well on the electric guitar. But this video isn't just about nerding out about the Droff. Some of you have been asking how I approach crafting tones on the Line 6 Helix platform, including the Helix floor and the HX Stomp. Allow me this opportunity to show you a little peek behind the closed doors of the Chan Tone Lab. First, let me share my approach that guides my process. In Bible translation, there's always a tension of literal versus dynamic translation. Do we want to translate word for word, retaining the sentence structure even if it sounds weird in English? Or do you want to communicate the idea behind the text, using English words, phrases, and idioms that make sense to us today but aren't necessarily present in the text? I think there's something similar in tone crafting. A literal tone crafting process will require you to hunt down every single component of someone's signal chain. The amps, the pedals, and where all the knobs are dialed in. In an ideal scenario, you can find out the exact settings from pictures on forums, artist interviews, and magazine articles. While it can be exhausting, the payoff is sublime similarity to the artist. A dynamic tone crafting process doesn't need you to be 100% accurate with the components of a signal chain. What matters is the idea behind the tone that you're trying to craft. If a tone is chunky, thick, articulate with a certain EQ flavor, to a certain degree it doesn't matter what amp or cab model you use. If you can dial in those characteristics, trusting in your ears, you won't need to exhaustively hunt down all that information. I adopted a dynamic tone crafting process with this vintage Droff series of patches for Helix and HX Stomp. These patches were crafted based on two things: the recordings that were available to me via my Hillsong CD collection, yes, physical CDs, no Spotify streaming gear, and my memories of my time in Hillsong, specifically the album recording nights and the City Campus Creative Arts nights. Those were a long time ago, but the guitar tones were transcendently memorable. First up, the core tone from the amp and cab. From what I can hear, the vintage Droff amp tone is pristine clean and functions as a blank canvas pedal platform. I needed an amp model with a lot of headroom and some deep EQ shaping options. To fulfill these needs, I landed on the Cali 4. As for cabinet sounds, Droff uses a stereo setup with two different cabs. At the time of the God He Reigns album, This was his amp setup.
Firstly, this was the Vox AC30. This is a late 70s model which sounds really cool. And I run that in stereo with this old faithful Mesa Boogie Nomad 55 watt head into a Fender 212 box. It's an old one, picked it up for a couple $100.
So to emulate this, I went with a dual cap block. One side being the 212 silver bell with an SM57 to capture the brightness in the upper mids, and the other being a 410 Tweed P10R with the Royer 121 to capture the low end and some warmth. I then added a combo of stereo parametric EQ and LA Studio Comp at the end of the chain to shape the tone a little more with cuts at 500Hz and 3.5 kHz. Those will reduce the boom that comes with having a 12-inch speaker and giving the overall tone a nice, mild, smiley EQ. Next, the effects. Even now, it sounds like Droff front-ends the amp with all of his effects rather than splitting out dry and wet effects pre and post-amp. Hence, you'll find two delays and a reverb before the amp. These will interact with the amps and crunch up slightly to give that distinct wet effect into amp sound, but not too much due to the Cali 4's high headroom. I went with a simple delay for the dotted eighth delay and a vintage digital for the quarter note delay to emulate his DB5, DM2 and Nova delay tones. As for the drives, Droff's older pedalboards have featured all manner of drive pedals, but the most distinct that I enjoyed hearing were his Expandora, Sparkle Drive and the Jekyll and Hyde. To achieve the various types of overdrive sounds, I'm stacking a combination of the Tima, 808 Screamer and Minotaur overdrives with an EQ after them to shape the mid focus. Then there's the quirky effects that only get used sparingly. There have been songs with one-off effects like the Leslie, the flanger, and the tremolo. I've included these just in case the worship leader calls from really old songs like You Are My World or King of Majesty. And now we come to the bonus section where I talk about where to get these patches. On my Buy Me a Coffee page, you'll be directed to a Google Drive folder where you gain access to these patches, both for Helix and the HX Stomp. The Helix will have all the effects options, while the HX Stomp will focus mainly on M tones with much less effects. If you do need additional effects on the Stomp, I recommend swapping out one of the drives and copying the FX information from a Helix preset viewer that I'll link in the description box. That's it from me. Thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to share it with someone whom you know is interested in vintage Nigel Hendroff tones on the Line 6 Helix platform. Until next time, this is Justin signing off.